Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Future Talks by Prana Labs. My name is Chelsea Sunil, and I'm your host for the day. So, you guys know the drill. I'm going to begin with a basic introduction of Prana Labs in case you do not know about us already. Prana Labs is a unique employability, entrepreneurship, and innovation ecosystem for women. Prana Labs give wholesome career support services, right from career counseling, training, mentoring, and recruitment services, all coming under one umbrella. This is Prana Collective. Prana Collective is a venture by Prana. It is unique in the attribute that it is India's first e-commerce platform that is dedicated to its women empowerment. The platform is uniquely designed with attractive affiliate marketing model where all the customers are given an opportunity for lifetime savings and earnings. So in case you're looking for authentic handmade products, we have plenty of those made by extremely talented women. So be sure to check us out at www.fructful.com. So in case during the session you guys have queries, please feel free to post it in the live chat box below and we'll get it to you at the end of the session. Regarding today's session, so the specialty of today's session is that we all know that um, currently the economy is at a crisis. The production, in fact, India's in fact, India's economic growth has been predicted by the IMF to be at 1.9%. Now, and the global economy is expected to contract by around 3%. Now, this might not look like a large number, but when you take the case of what happened back in the 2008 World Economic Crisis, you'll see that the economy back then only contracted by 0.1%. So taking all this into account, comes to us as no surprise that the coming times businesses are going to be entering and like Payal Nanjiani told yesterday, most businesses are failing and most economies are going to be struggling. So which is why the session comes as a need of the hour, our session on business strategies post-COVID. The session is going to be taken by Babu Raj Nair. He's the chief mentor and founder of P2P Consulting and a former CHRO of the Hindu. He is also an accomplished practitioner with 3 decades of academic, consultancy, and corporate exposure, and could shift the paradigm of companies where he had worked. Currently working as a chief mentor at 2 startup companies in Dubai and UAE, one in digital transformation business and another in entertainment business. He was a chief people officer at Rasi Group at Rafi Seeds, and he worked at the National HRD Network, a former vice president human resources at Harrison's Malayalam, former head HR at Volvo Eco Commercial Vehicles Limited, and a former assistant general manager at corporate HRD at Crompton Green. So, who better to him than someone who's had almost 3 decades of business experience? Welcome to the show, sir, and over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chelsea. Friends, extremely happy to be here, and thanks to Prayana to inviting me for this webinar. Interestingly, this almost 40-45 minutes time talking on the subject on business strategies is very challenging because of the time which is available for it. So therefore, after this presentation, if any one of you as a group or maybe individually wanted to send a mail to me to discuss and further detailing it out, if they want to have it, they are most welcome to do it with me on a one-to-one basis or in a group. So I can help you to expand the framework which I am going to explain in this particular webinar. And some of you who know me must be thinking that this gentleman's face is different from the flyer which Prayana has sent it to each one of you. And it's the same Babraj. And the only thing is that it is during the COVID and did some makeup myself on my face. So this is the same gentleman and talking to you. Okay. And one of the major focus of my, after working with the Hindu group almost a year back now, I moved out, started my own consultancy called P2P Consulting, and which is focusing, the focus is on creating actionable knowledge in the business through people management. So how do we create actionable knowledge, which is possible to be implemented in an organization? And so in nutshell, this is what I am going to have. This is a few more presentation, few slides are there, but at the end of 30-45 minutes time, you can always raise questions. And then I will try to explain to you as best as possible. Well, when we talk about leadership, when we talk about business strategies, the first thing and most critical is the leadership. Leadership means, I don't mean by just CEO and MD, I mean by the entire board and the leadership team, the executive management team of an organization. But whether it is an Indian perspective or whether it is an international perspective, what happens is a myopic perspective of leadership in most of the organization, whether it is in India or abroad. And if you study multiple organizations where we were talking about succession planning is the best a few years back, and then it is changing after some time when there is a need for succession at a senior most level, they try to get people from outside. When the data, research data very clearly indicates that for a legacy organization, an organization which is around 50 years old plus running the business, for them, an internal candidate is a better possibility or probability of success rather than an internal external perspective. But many places where we have seen the companies are not doing well, or this one is only because of a myopic perspective of leadership. And when I'm explaining to it, because it is entire 7-8 slides are basically run on multiple research which has been done on this area for this specifically for this webinar. And therefore, you can look at it and try to understand how it is there, is being done. Now, the slides which I'm doing is that a few slides are at context setting, which talks about socio-cultural, economical impact of the recession, depression, and specific challenges, organization, society impact, and strategy reviewing, rewiring, probable approach, what happened, and then if time permits, I will do a summation of ideas. Otherwise, I will straight away go for question and answers. What I did is that I have done quite a lot of studies during the last 100 years. What has happened in the areas of recession? What happened in the recession? Why?
Hello, sir. Sorry. Hello, sir. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
But your PPT isn't visible yet. Maybe you haven't shared the screen.
Till now?
Yeah, till now.
Okay. Is it visible now?
Yeah, it is. Okay, sir.
Sorry. Yeah. So what I did was that the last 100 years, what has happened as far as when you talk about recession and depression, and what are we talking about? Economic recession, economic depressions. Where are we talking about COVID now in the context of what we are talking about? So if we look at it, mainly we can find that there are some 8 factors. Some of them are stock market crash, bank failures, housing crisis, large scale slowdown, broad famine, international trade collapse, and rising bankruptcy. But here, when we talk about COVID, we are talking about exogenous factors, which are more like wars, epidemics, and pandemics. So what I did was that to look at around 100 years old or 125 years old, from 1900 onwards, what was happening and which is the most impacted economic scenario as well as the society and the government. So what I found is that 1918, there was a pandemic called the Spanish flu, which most of you who are listening to this audio must have known through all kinds of, WhatsApp messages, which is happening. But interestingly, even when you look at it, 1918, January, when it has started, the January 18 when it has started, and it has moved on to almost 18, 19, and 20. Almost December 2020, it has moved on to it. And when we talk about Spanish flu, it's also very interesting to understand that actually it was not originated in Spanish. 1918, I think October, November, or maybe nearer the November, end of November, 2018, the World War I was completed, and this was started in, as a not to create any moral issues among us, the war soldiers and others. What at that time, what has been done was to suppress this information, which was actually happened in European countries starting with, and then spread it across to other places. And Spain was a neutral country. And there was news which is coming out of this Spain saying that the country's king was in a very, going through a critical illness. And based on that, which is actually afterwards came to know about Spanish flu. So suppression of information, which was happened almost in 2018 onwards, is possible to happen even today. Interestingly, when you look at it, other cases of HIV, AIDS, around 25 million people died of HIV and AIDS. But Spanish flu has impacted almost 100 million plus, and the people who have died across the world was around 50 million. So that's a kind of an impact which Spanish flu has impacted. But now, why we talk about Spanish flu at this juncture when we talk about COVID? So if you look at, it's an influenza which has actually impacted Spanish flu, and some of the symptoms. Hello. That's a kind of an impact which Spanish flu. Yeah. So high fever, running nose, sore throat, muscle and joint pain, headache, coughing, all these elements which we are talking about today also was the symptoms which was there in influenza, what we talk about Spanish flu. And studies at that time afterwards, after 2020, a lot of studies has been done. And 2007, and so 1920, 1918, I'm talking about it. And 2007, that means after 2000, there were many other simulation model studies which has been done based on Spanish. And people try to predict that if such a pandemic happens again in the world, what will be the impact and how it is interesting to look at it. Now, it is also interesting when I speak about we as a leadership, when I first started with a myopic perspective of leadership, we are also highly reactive, not as a society, as a social leadership, political leadership, not only in Indian context, globally, even today when we look at it, whether the European countries or American leadership, how they are reactively looking at this entire pandemic. It's also very interesting to understand and learn. But more critical is that in 2007, the Federal Reserve Bank, one of the economists, very senior level economist in Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, he has done a study, and a group of economists have done some studies and predicted at that time that developing countries are not ready to face if such an issue comes up. And why? It is because there is a huge collaborative approach which is required, and therefore they are not even ready. And today when you look at it and listening to the news around the world, you can see that how much their readiness, quote unquote, is being seen and felt. Now, in this context of changing impact of the this pandemic called COVID affects us, what could be the impact of the world of work in the context which is happening? Now, I have used a metaphor because metaphors are considered can help us to rewire our thought process and can also get out of the cage which is there in our mind. So I'm using a metaphor of a tree. And why? Because a tree is an organism and organization is nothing but a living organism. And like a tree, when you look at a tree growing, a tree, when it is not doing well, the leaves on its own, it moves off. Otherwise, the people who are growing it plucks it up to ensure that new leaves are coming in. So therefore, it is an organism based, a living organism need to be rejuvenated, and either externally or internally, it automatically works on it and makes a change within themselves. So, and when you look at a tree, you cannot predict that which branch will move to which area. So it is dynamic. It is very difficult to fathom which branch, which changes which will happen. So that is why I have used a tree as a metaphor. Now, roots, when we talk about it, roots are not visible. And many times we are not looking at how the roots are happening. When you look at it, what are the fundamentals of an organization, the values of an organization. And it is, when you look at the roots, which is nothing but the economic environment globally or locally, which is continuously paradoxical, which is changing. And every time when it is changes, the organization is expected to look at it differently. But what happens is, because of our myopic and reactive, even today, when you look at it, WhatsApp messages, most of the information is not strategic. Most of them are transition-based questions, transition, whether what is happening in PF, what is happening in this one, and knowing fully well, each organization is different, each organism is different, each plant, each tree is different. It has to be nurtured in a context which is in it is. And for example, when you talk about focus on technology for higher productivity. Now, for a plant, if you see that there are numerous technologies which has come in, whether it is for tilling, whether it is for harvesting, whether it is the way in which they're doffing hybrids and hydroponics, where the plant can be created without soil, and not much soil actually is water solvent is used in creating hydroponics. And there are limitations in these sciences, but productivity, higher productivity also even in a tree or a plants or in agriculture, technology is used to create higher productivity, because the fertility is changing, the nature of the geography is changing, and therefore the productivity comes down from the soil, productivity comes down, and therefore at a lesser soil, how do you create more productive outcome? So that is why I have used a tree as a metaphor for easy to remember, easy to understand, and easy to correlate and expand. Because the more you think about it, reflect, you can expand many thoughts on these perspectives. And therefore, when we are talking about the pandemic impact in the world, possibilities of probabilities of it's a larger impact in the world and in our country and in our respective states, and the work environment which is changing, what areas were organizational areas which COVID can impact? In a pandemic environment, generally when you talk about financial impact, as you see that recessions, whether it is a financial, whether it is a share market collapse, it impacts only one aspect of an organization. But as you know, an organization are 5 major aspects. One is finance, one is physical, the land, equipment, market, how it is the goodwill, the branding, product line, distribution, operational, the structure, the practice and technology, the people. And all these 4 are impacted when a pandemic arises. It is not possible for us to connect with one areas of work. It has to be seen on all the 5 areas of an organization, and it is easy to measure on the other side of it, financial, but when it comes to the people, And whether it is a stock, a share, and all that 8 parameters, the octagon picture, which I have seen as a recession and depression areas, when it is being seen, you will see that the most impacted area is people. And therefore, the culture of each of an organization, whether it is a small startup organization and whether it is a larger organization, the culture has to change. The competency, most of us are talking about before 1940s management theories and experiences. So there are a lot of research work which has been done, and the management practices has evolved after 1960. So if you look at it, 1960 to 2020 today, is almost 60 years of research which has been done on various things. The learning of management has moved out of one single area. It has started learning from one cross-functional, cross-science, even from physics, from chemistry, from biology. There's a new areas called biomimicry. And therefore, learnings have started, new ideas, new perspectives have started coming. And therefore, there is a need to rewire the organization based on new learnings, not living onto that before 1960 or 1900, before 1900 managerial thought process and perspective. So when you talk about a competency, we talk about still many of us, because many of the international managers talks about only knowledge, attitudes, and skills. That is an acronym for CASH. And when you look at that, we can see that the H part is mostly missed out. But even if you are a star performer, if the H is not there, that means the health. The health aspect is something which is very, very important when you talk about competence. And when you talk about in a new context, the health is not only for the employees, it has to move into the entire value chain of the family, of the individual who is working. That is his family, his immediate family also has to connect into the health. And it can be emotional health, it can be physiological health, or it can be an experience which is to create more engagement and experience for him and his role. And many in these areas are missing out in today's structuring of people management processes. And therefore, but it is very difficult to measure such kinds of processes also. Another very important thing which we miss out in many of this discussion when we are talking about it is on the, when you, just let me just pick on to these things. Just give me 1 second. Another very important thing which I want to talk to you as the social aspects which is impacting the organization. So first I talked about the areas of issues which is impacting in the last 100 years, what is impacting, what is the new world of work, and what are the organizational areas. And now what I want to discuss is on the social, the macro social perspectives of an organization and how it is impacting an organization, and therefore where we need to look at it and change as far as these things are concerned. Now, there are 3 major elements. One is functionalism, one is symbolic, and one is conflict perspective. We have to appreciate and understand that our organization, our culture has got all these 3 elements. One is a micro and 2 are macro. And therefore, when you are looking at these things, when you are structuring your organization, when you are looking at building your processes and systems, if you're not appreciative of it and presuming that these are not important and these social aspects can not bring the optimum solutions to any of these processes. Therefore, the sustainability of this process over a long period of time, especially in the context like this, it will be very difficult. There is a research which has been done almost in 1980, which has been done by Hofstede. It's a very, very famous, he's a sociologist basically. He has done some study on national level culture. And if you look at the national level culture, we can see that there are 6 elements of this national elements culture, which talks about power distance, which is talking about the masculine and feminine, masculine aspect of the culture of a nation. It talks about long-term perspectives. It talks about whether it is indulgence versus whether it is reactive kind of a restricted kind of a culture, or whether it is an individualism, or there is an element of uncertainty avoidance. These are the 6 aspects of this, where it is very clearly very interesting. And the last 30 years of my work in organizations, which is very clear, it says that India, the power distance, that means there is a respect for hierarchy. And if you look at it, the new generation, there is a definite difference or the conflict between the old generation perspective of the power distance, because they don't want an hierarchy. But whether we like it or not, whether it is a social, when you look at it a larger perspective of the society or an organization, nation, we can see still we are having a hierarchy in our mind, and therefore we are also aligned to various issues and concerns. We are a norm-based, a structure-based people. And therefore, if in a group environment, if 10 people are saying something, we find it extremely difficult to say no to it or make our point very clearly to them. And we will have a tendency to speak outside the forum, which is not going to help the organization or the employee or the individual who is looking at it. So therefore, the social perspectives are very, very critical to understand in a context of it. Now, let me look at the economic aspect, economic challenges which can happen. So if you study the world around, what can happen in a pandemic area, it can impact all sectors. But in a country like us, maybe possibly the agriculture and other things, especially in the last 2 months of data, which I'm taking it up, I find that we are fairly okay. We are not that much to be worried. But when you look at a national level GDP, when you look at it, the unemployment, when we look at it, other aspects of a country as a whole, and or a state, and when we are not in a position to move our goods from one place to another place, what are we going to do with it? And some places the crop is may lose, and because every place in India, it is not a uniform. The seasonal crops are not being done in uniform months. It is different from different geography, different places. Therefore, how do we manage it if you continue to happen? Now, I am not trying to portray a negative or a very pessimistic this one. What I'm only looking at it, there is a pessimistic process which is not going to help us. Too much optimism is not going to help us, because we presume that everything is going to be okay, so there is nothing to be worried. What I want is for the people to be realistic and try to understand. And if there is an eventuality comes in, are we ready for it? Are we thinking in this direction so that we can proactively start working on it? Because ultimately it is going to impact the people within the organization and the consumers in the country, or the people in totality. Whatever names which you give it to the people. When you are working in an organization, they become employees. When they are purchasing something, they become consumers. So ultimately, when you look at it, how does the business impacts? The business definitely can get into a high inventory on low production and less projects. It can be on a manufacturing, it can be bricks, it can be IT, it can be capital intensive organizations, projects. So what will happen is that there will be underutilization of capacity, services, and manufacturing. What is going to happen on the operational and people? Many times I have very, very carefully tried to not to use the word people redundancy, because most of us try to use the word of people eliminating people. Definitely that is something which happens. But if you are only trying to look at the people elements or moving people out is the only way to address this issue, which is not going to happen. And addressing people issues need to have a long-term understanding. it has to be planned, it has to be appreciated by all the key stakeholders to make it meaningfully, drive it within the organization and the environment which the organization is aligned to. And so when I'm talking about operational and people inefficiency, it includes the non-performing people who are not adding value. It was happening earlier also, but in today's context, when the revenue is not going to happen, and the state is also going to be impacted because there will be no revenue for them. In the earlier cases, in the earlier recessions, and I think International Monetary Fund has given billions of dollars, but it was impacting one particular geography and its related impact on others. But just presume that if it is impacting all the countries, it will be extremely difficult for IMF or any other international bodies or Reserve Bank of India or any national bodies to support states with monetary support. So there will be difficulty, there will be a extremely difficult crunch of various resources. Coming to Kerala specifically, when I was talking about MSME and foreign remittance, interestingly, around 25, 29 to 30% of the GDP is coming from the MSMEs, which is MSME is nothing but a micro and small medium enterprises, which is ranging from a revenue of around 10 lakhs to almost 10 crores. Whether it is a service industry, it is the cap is different for service industry and cap is different from the manufacturing and other industries. But more or less ranges from almost 2 to 3 lakhs to almost 10 crores. Now, within this range, if you look at it, majority of the Indian populations are having almost 29-30% of the GDP. Now, how this is going to be impacted, how it is going to affect the economic power and the consumer purchasing power of the country. And when they, in any of the recessions, whether it is the 1918 or 2007-18, when the financial impact was there, the housing impact was there. In any of this one, the biggest issue is a lack of consumer confidence. When the consumer does not have the confidence in the market, they try to not to use it. Secondly, when they don't have the money to do that, then the purchasing power comes down. So the entire, it's like a circle of impact, which is impacting every aspect of the fabric of the society. So the society, when we are looking at it, society also looks at changes its behavior pattern in such a crisis. And its impact will be there on the government, the way in which the government leadership is right. So many of these things today, when we look at it, even today, we are trying to address a crisis. We are not trying to look at it, what will be happening and how we need to manage tomorrow. We are presuming that today, let us manage today and we will see tomorrow. That's fine. From an individualistic micro level, I am concerned about me. I can say that. But can I continue to be saying like that when the world around me in a turmoil? So therefore, each one of us need to look at a social responsibility and a political leadership responsibility also to ensure that we are trying to work together in a highly collaborative manner. The collaboration which is being used many times are not the way in which we need to use it today. So today, when we are looking at it, what is a possible approach which we can do it? It is a triadical approach is what I am suggesting to the audience and to other people who can listen to it afterwards. So there are three elements which is important. One is the society, one is organization, one is government. All the three has to work together for a purposeful coexistence. I have suggested in one of my articles, I have suggested that it is critical for the legal framework has to be rewired, relooked at. It cannot be said that, no, it is the consisting this one, so it will work in this element, and these contours are very sacrosanct. It is not possible to work in that environment, to think differently and implement and we cannot have a purposeful coexistence. But the word purposeful coexistence also believes other stakeholders beyond our organizational contour. That means my organization is existing because of many other, allied ancillaries organization, which gives me a raw material of various forms, or supporting me in my manufacturing process many places, or maybe vendors, maybe retailers. So if I am not trying to create a purposeful coexistence along with them, there will be no alliance which is of helpful for me. And there, after some time, even if I am doing very well, my own value as an organizational, economic value of an organization will come down. And therefore, it is extremely critical for I was trying to look at the CII and all other larger platform of associations are still talking about how many masks has been given, how many CSR fund has been mobilized to create some benefits, best practices being done by the companies. But that is anyway expected to be done as a socially responsible. But what is that which we need to do for streamlining, correlating, co-connecting with this entire value chain needs a lot of time, lot of energy, lot of work, lot of transparency. Are we ready to do that? At a leadership level, at board level, are we ready to do that? Now, if we do not do that, there will be chaos, especially in this situation. If it is continuous, like the pandemic, the only pandemic which we can correlate is the Spanish flu, which has lasted almost 3 years. But of course, it has shifted in different geographies, and it has created a lot of economic and political upheavals at that particular period of time. So it is whether our individual survival is not critical. Can we create a new value order? Now we always talk about new normal. Can we create a value order, a new value order of purposeful coexistence? That means why are we coexisting? There should be a purpose. Can we connect the society? Government alone cannot do it. Every time, especially in a federal environment like or a democratic country like ours, it becomes extremely difficult. You have seen in the in many areas that it is changing into even in America, there are people who are saying that we need more freedom, we need a lockdown is to be avoided. All these things we are hearing. So therefore, there is a need to relook at the business context at a larger level, macro level. Now, when we come into micro level, that means within the organization, within the business practices, we need to change the enablers, that is people and technology. We need to look at operational, that is entire business value chain, as I explained, not just a collaboration with this internal and external value chain, and the directional processes, that is, what is the purpose of existence of my company? What is the strategy, therefore, I am? Without understanding, just a vision is totally different. Vision is where I need to go. And purpose is why I need to go to where. I'm repeating again, vision is something we are saying that where do we want to go. But purpose is why we wanted to go where we want to go. So therefore, and it is not easy. I have done enough workshops on this area, but it is not very easy on defining purpose because people are still from a myopic perspective. And when I'm using the word myopic perspective, it is not to not used in a derogative manner. Unfortunately, all of us, over years of wiring which has been done in our mind, it is extremely difficult to shift until and unless we are willing to listen, willing to collaborate with a much more larger aspect, which is purpose, than operational objectives, operational vision, which creates a contour. Now, without these contours, if we can think outside, then only we can have a collaborative. So we, from a traditional to a solution orientation to a collaborative coexistence, is a model which we need to look at in business processes. And therefore, at a different leadership level, it is important for them to think differently. It is very easy to say think differently, but therefore there's a need to have an external support in thinking through these processes, trying to echo it. There is no solution. The world study very clearly says that an economic recession of this magnitude is not easy to. So there is no prescriptive models. If I try to say that this is the prescription, so therefore you use it, it is not going to work. And it is highly contextual. Now, if that context can be expanded and more collaborative teams can be worked at, the contextual solutions which you are trying to make can have a more buy-in. The lesser buy-in on various decisions which we will have a problem. So therefore, we need to rewire the people management. I don't call it as an HR. HR is, many times when we look at HR, we look at HR as only as a function. When you talk about people management, it is talking about cutting across all the employees. How do we manage people in the organization? Organizations are changing. Again, I have used the metaphors. And organization is changing from a hierarchical mode to a networking. And Hummingbird is considered to be one of the most agile organization bird, better than, sometimes people think that eagle is this one, but Hummingbird is considered to be, it's a very small bird, very beautiful small bird, but it is considered to be much more agile than any other bird. That is why I used the word here, the figure of the chemistry figure which I have given is for innovation. There's a need for continuously innovate, continuously try to look at it, which is this, and try to, like an experimental lab and in a beaker, try to find out what are the things need to be continuously try to look at it, find out which one we can add, what is the millimeters or not millimeters, the amount which we need to add to ensure that the correct concoction which we get it in these areas. Now, when you talk about agility, there are three specific differentiation which I want to make it. One is fixedness. There's nothing wrong in fixedness. Sometimes fixedness also has its own plus points and negative points. The second one which we use interchangeably is between flexibility and agility. And I want to make a clear difference between flexibility and agility. Flexibility, when we are talking about within the resources, how do we work in different, the ability to do multiple actions from within the resources. But when we talk about agility, we are talking about ability to create a different direction itself. And how fast the directional shift can happen. And that needs an extremely different focus. And therefore, the figure of customer, which has been indicated here, internal as well as external customer focus. Many of the people processes are being driven, not even with an internal process. It is all leadership driven, not people driven. And therefore, the sustainability becomes a very extremely critical, difficult. And the last and most important, that leveraging technology. Understanding technology is not sufficient for managing people. Like what I've told, given the metaphor of a tree, it is critical for us to understand that. And therefore, what are the changes which we need to look at the leadership? So like an uncut diamond, the diamond has to be polished. Positional power will not help. We have to appreciate an asymmetrical relationship between, which happens. Asymmetrical means unbalanced. All of you know that. So there is a more symbiotic value-based relationship which we need to create, and the leadership has to shift it to that. Contextual imagination means it is an element of trying to create a solution which was not done earlier. So there is a need to imaginatory, how do you look at it, rather than identifying solutions earlier and trying to force fit it to your organization, it will not work. And how do we, most of us say that we are reflective, but many of us are not reflective because we are not looking at it, understanding it from a larger in-depth perspective. And most of us are, because of the wiring which we had, the years of wiring and in a peculiar manner, each one of us have our own superfluous style of defining whether we are reflective, whether we are open, we are transparent, but we don't look at it from a contextual, customer focused and defining it, where am I, or where my leadership leadership paradigm is. To explain further into it, I have done a 2x2 system. In today's context, it is only today's context. When I look at the capability of the company from a cash and other things, and marketing from a point of it, if the company is growing and but the money is not available, and if you do not take necessary action, it is still a big question mark whether it will survive or not survive, or somebody will take off. But when the company is not growing, market is not growing, it is stagnant, and the money is also not there, it is definitely going to be either closed down or somebody has to take off. The cash-rich companies, whether it's even if the market is not growing, can sustain for some time. And like Ambani's recent acquisition, or maybe not acquisition, I will say Facebook association with Facebook, and such kinds of large business organization worldwide can still survive for a larger period of time. If it is not going to impact, and God forbid it should not continue for a long period of time, but if it happens, even that organization needs to look at it. So each organization has got a different timeline to work on it, and therefore people may think that it is not the right time to look at it. In this context, I have created an acronym which is called a probable solution is a vaccine approach, because COVID needs a vaccine, and this vaccine is because it is a particular infectious disease. When you talk about vaccine, it's a biological preparation. Now we want a sociological preparation of vaccine. Now, how do we, what does that mean? One is, it should be a value chain. Second one is asymmetrical. Third one is a collective thinking. And the fourth one is communication. It should be fairness. It should be authenticity. It should be conviction. It should be transparent. It should safeguard interest. It should, IT leverage has to happen. Networking with an influencing. Networking is not going and having dinner or parties and all that. Networking with a business purpose. Influencing government and other bodies. And the last and most important, efficiency, operational, in all aspects of operational, including people. So the entire summary of this entire presentation is that use vaccine to eradicate it, but you cannot use vaccine to eradicate it until and unless we work together. Like vaccine today, many countries around the world is trying different approaches. So until and unless we work in a collaborative, in a real collaborative, transparent manner, it becomes extremely difficult to manage tomorrow's this one. I will be extremely happy to listen to your thoughts, maybe offline or online. The four major books which I have referred, which is very interesting, which is different, which is of 1980 onwards. One is a Chrysalis Economy by John Ellington, which any one of you want to read, you can do that. Second one is Reinventing Organizations by Frederick. The most interesting business transformations they have studied as a case study. And Nature of Business Redesign for Resilience is another interesting book, which is talking about how nature can be used, the biomimicry based one. And Imaginization is a extremely research-based work which has been done by Gareth Morgan, and it's a pioneering work which has been done. These four books can also help people to look at things differently than in a myopic silo perspective, which we generally do it across the various functions and various this one. And that is it from my side. I am ready to take up any questions and anything from all of you.
Okay, so we do have a few questions, sir. So the first one is from Benny KJ. So what he's asking is, can a robotic process automation lead to higher productivity for all the functions? Your views.
Um, almost 2 years back, when I was invited to speak on artificial intelligence in Bombay, I said that robotics, it is very easy to say robotics, but even in various organizations, robotics, artificial intelligence is not used in its real perspective of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence needs data. Robots are used even today in some perspective in some places. So where we want to use it, in auto sector, if you look at it, robots are used. So where, which company, where, how, all these aspects are critical to understand. And the cost, ultimately, whether the cost perspectives are also equally important to see whether we can do robotics, is it worth doing that? So a long-term cost benefit analysis has to be done before doing it. But as I told you, technology has to be utilized and leveraged in the best possible manner, but understand the context. Your understanding the context is extremely critical than just looking at some other companies doing it and then trying to do it in your organization.
Okay, sir. So the next question is from Mansi Dugad. So what she's asking is, how do you measure macro elements?
Yeah, there is a extremely good framework which is available, but we must understand what do we want to measure. That's very critical. Most of us do not know, even at a very senior level, sorry to say that, we do not know what we want to measure. When I'm taking a vice president, if I ask the honor, what is the deliverables for him? No idea. It is expected that he will come and deliver. What? So if the madam wanted me to work along with her, without cost, no cost involved, because people immediately think that it's a consultancy. No, if anybody wanted to work with me offline and think through with them their problem, I'm very happy to do it. My email ID is very clearly available with you, and you can connect it to me.
Okay, sir. So the next question is from Vasanta Kumar PV. So what he asks is, what do you think is going to be the impact of COVID-19 on employment scenario?
Yeah, Vasant, a very good old friend of mine, and is like a very senior person. And nice to have you here. Employment scenario can be multiple levels. One is that, as I told you, in this 4 quadrant which I explained, and in a larger organization, the impact will be very slow. In a smaller organization, MSMEs and startup companies and organizations which is around without having this scenario, because many companies are also having a lot of internal issues as far as finance is concerned. So unless these companies are looking at it, employees will have a tough time to work with. One of the suggestions which I have given is that if you have the entire value chain of the entire industry, particular industry, auto sector, agriculture industry, then there is a possibility these people can be used in pools and circulate amongst them to try to see that. That is number one. Number two, everybody should have only a sustainable income for sustaining it, and use the other amount as a deferred amount, not deduction. I'm talking about a deferred money, deferred fund. If the company is doing well, economy is doing very well, the organization should support these employees to ensure that they get that money. They don't lose out for their capabilities and competencies and the investment and efforts which they have done during this scenario to build the company and sustain the company. These are the two major things, but contextual, organization-wise, many ideas and suggestions can be given on people management. Not just removing people is not the only answer. It will only create chaos unless the organization is not thinking through it and actionating it in a very well stakeholder-based action. I have removed many thousands of people in my entire 30 years of this one, but in none of the cases I have created an unrest in my organization. Therefore, it is extremely critical to have a buy-in. And this buy-in is not easy, just like that tomorrow you want to take some 100 people out, it will only create a chaos in an organization.
and in economy. I hope, Vasanta, I have answered.
So next question is regarding cash, KASH. Can you say a little more on the competency?
Yeah, most of us do not know, like what Payal yesterday talks about some of the aspects in yesterday's webinar session. She's talked about it. We look at knowledge, we look at skills. We don't look at attitudinal shift. And even at a very senior level, if the guy is good in particular area of specialization, we take him in. After some time, we will find that he is absolutely no cultural fit at all. But we continue that guy and bring a lot of inefficiency in the organization because we are emotionally connected to our decisions. We cannot be, when we are taking organizational decision, we cannot be emotional. We can be humane. Humane is different, emotional is different. That is why I said contextual imagination. That ability to imagine, bringing the people together and taking a decision. Once you take a decision, why did you take a decision at a very senior level? And that can happen at a very junior level also. Having taken a wrong decision at a senior level and then removing people at a lower level is not a right answer. So cash means when you talk about health also, many of the people talk about health in the name of employee engagement, but nobody is looking at it in a completely rewiring the organizational health itself. There is some terminology which I call it as an organizational obesity. How many of us are interested in understanding what is organizational obesity? Like a physiological obesity. So until and unless you remove all these things, just by doing some yogas and transcendental meditation, this one, employee will not have any experience. Employee will not have any engagement. And therefore, cash, when you talk about knowledge, attitude, and attitude can be measured. Everything has to have an understanding about why we are doing what we are doing. That clarity should be there from top down. And if that is there, it is easy to implement because measuring is possible. From when we are born, we are getting measured. When we are dying, we are getting measured. Isn't it? And therefore, measuring is not a big issue. But in some cases, even measurement need not be there. There is an evaluation which is required. So the entire performance management process has to be relooked at it. And it is not today. I'm talking about it for the last 20 years. We are still talking about whether performance appraisal has been done, how much increment is being given, what are the things which is to be done. This is not the time to talk about transactional areas. We are still worried about transactions. And when we are talking about transactions, it's extremely difficult to manage change. That's what I'm saying. But offline, anybody want to talk about it and understand it and how to measure, most welcome to taking them through because it's a huge subject itself. Or Chandra can, take another webinar on only measurement on performance. I am willing to do that.
Okay, sir. So this question is from Prem Was. You have captured the evolution of the effects of the pandemic over the century very well. How much of it is a case of history repeating itself in the current COVID and its impact on Indian economy?
Yeah, I don't know. Prem is a black commando of the Indian army, and salute to him as a soldier, former soldier. I had an opportunity to work with him. And Prem, thank you for coming. And I have in one of my slide, I have very clearly explained that how pandemic of 1918 is going. The research data, they have done a lot of simulation studies, and I can share with you the article offline. And on that, a lot of research work which has been done. It will be very surprising to note that nobody worldwide, I'm talking about in America, nobody has done any activities. Any proactive measures of disastrous management, nobody has done. Everybody is waiting for a crisis to happen and then work on it. If it continues, all the things which at least 70-80% of whatever I am saying is possible to be happening if it continues for another 2 more months, because already some of the aviation, mostly it will happen the capital intensive organizations. And there is a limit for the government to address on it. Indian economy will have a relative better, slower impact than other economy, but we cannot be happy and we say that, we are quote unquote protected. I think that we will be very looking at it in a very narrow perspective if we do that.
Okay, sir. So the next question is from Rasia Srikumar. So what she's asking is, don't we have to apply PERT or CPM and linear programming tools, corporate and armed forces to manage logistics to connect between mouths and farms?
CPM, that is CPM is nothing but this one logistical processor, critical path method basically. Like is PERT, CPM, all these are tools which, so these are all just managerial tools. And these tools, whether you look at it, actually it is gone beyond. It is almost 100-year-old tools. Now we are talking about learning from honeybees. How honeybees or how ants are shifting their products. And there are a lot of work which has been done in Harvard. So PERT and CPM is not the only, because it is again yesterday's science. We need to think differently. We need to look at things differently, and we cannot think and only two of you and me and you sit together and work on it. It's not going to happen. So entire value chain need to work together, find out a solution, new thoughts, new perspectives. That is where thought leaders should be able to influence and work along with these people, because it is extremely difficult to operational leaders to think differently. I'm not, I have worked in the area. Our mind is full of operation. It's not, they are brilliant guys, but they are highly busy on various things. The mind get, caught into these cobwebs. So we need to have thought leaders work along with them to shift it. But these tools are very old tools, which is the logistic arrangements have changed a lot.
So now we have a question from Kalyan B. With the entire labor force, daily earners and qualified engineers facing the huge risk of unemployment, how are we going to deal with the crisis?
Again, as I told you, the only way if we can reduce the impact to a great extent, if we can have a purposeful coexistence. But if I am going to work only for my company and going to address my issue, it is going to be extremely difficult, because I will take a decision in my company, I will remove some 100 people, 50 people, where they will go? Who is going to own it up? So there is a social, when you're talking about CSR, today organization, corporates need to take that social responsibility. We don't need to pay them 100% and pay them sustenance allowance. That is what I did it in one of the Dubai company. Do a sustenance allowance process. Again, sustenance allowance can be varied. Can be a family managed, people are different. Youngsters, it is different. It can be different. But we need to have a dialogue with them. We cannot have a monologue decisions on it. You can see how things are happening in government. Government is having dialogues. So until unless the entire stakeholders are, and it needs time. So again and again, we are waiting. Even today, we are waiting for May 3rd, when it will be open, we will be on the road. If everything goes well, we are happy. But if we are talking about 1918 flu, and if a simulation we are studying, we should be careful. We should be much more careful to this one, because once it spreads, it spreads. It will be very difficult to manage.
So this another question. This is by Arun Mohan. So what he's asking is, how will this situation impact startup fundraising?
Globally, there are some companies are willing to invest now. It will depend on the quality of the service this company. Even today, there are companies who are willing to acquire. And most of the times, if the company has got a value proposition, the company will be either acquired or they will have a partnership alliance with them, with the startup companies. But there must be a value proposition, and the clients should see that value proposition to make it happen. Otherwise, that company has to close down and will be closed down. Sorry.
So, yeah. So now we have a question from Dr. P.V. Lakshmipati. So what you're asking is, wonderful insight, Professor Baburaj. Are you available for consulting outside Kerala?
No, I am not doing any consultancy in Kerala. Actually, most of my work is outside Kerala. And Dr. Lakshmipati is like my guru. My mentor is an IIM professor, actually. Worked with many companies, and very happy to have you, sir. And definitely, I'll be very happy to work on it. With money or without money. Money is the least important thing in today's context.
Oh, he's also asked another question. do you have a template that can be used to arrive at a whole systematic picture before approaching you?
We have to draw it. If I cannot be a prescriptive. See, the moment I become a prescriptive, then it becomes against all the points which I have mentioned. Because in today's context, a prescription cannot be given. So if any organization wants to work with, we have to work with them to identify, prepare the entire value chain and help them. That is why I'm saying there is no time available. So we need to work together in many of the things. We need to, many good, real good thought leaders are there in India. Business managers, strategists, very good professors, but there are very few who can think through it. So they have to come together. They have to work together in various areas and to help the organizations. But I am willing to do whatever is possible to be done, and framework can be created, but it has to be contextual. It cannot be prescriptive.
Okay, sir. So now I'm going to read out a few comments. So this comment is from Murli Nikam. He said, great seminar, Baburaj sir. So there's a comment by J. Jacob that this is an opportune time to reduce organizational obesity. And Prem was, thank you, sir, for that introduction and answering my question. Elsa Baby, thank you, sir, for this wonderful session. And Pooja Shri, thank you very much for your interesting presentation, sir. Oh, Jaya Jacob has, she's made a comment. Differential sustenance allowance based on individual profile and needs is interesting. So there's we actually have gotten a question. So this is from Rajesh Patmanabhan. What are your views on the need for change in perspective in the way the world manages personal finances? A paradigm shift from savings is equal to income minus expenses to expenses equal to income minus savings.
Yeah, quite true. Quite true, actually. Actually, you can see that many of our expenditure has come down. We know that how to manage within the bare minimum, this one working together. What is important is that, see, lockdown is not an issue. Lockdown, but our mind, our work has to happen. There should be some, even for, if I'm a mason, what will I do sitting at home? I'm a mason. Where is my skill is used? So somewhere after some time, I need to use my skill set. How might for us, we can do webinars, we can think through it, we can work together online system. What about the lower level people? So we need to identify, and gainfully employment is more important than money, because money saving, actually, Rajesh is a financial advisor, is a well-known financial advisor in Chennai, and possibly he can support and help in such kinds of environment with people. Rajesh, thank you.
So we have another question by Benny KJ. Your views on the following. 1. Industries should not be booked by law enforcement agencies if their workers or employees get COVID. 2. Medical insurance for the workers to be made mandatory in the addition to ESI. So these two things.
Yeah, it's a comment or is a question?
It's a question. He wants your views on it.
It's a comment. It's a question. Yeah, see, I think that we need to look at it. We need to look at it. Medical insurance, even today, medical insurance is not helpful. Medical insurance, actually, if you do in some of my companies where medical insurance, actually the cost of premium has gone beyond what I have to give it otherwise, because the hospitals increase their cost for treatment. And again, what I am saying is that each employee should feel that the organization is standing for it. The intention, if it is well meant, there can be a solution beyond medical insurance. Medical insurance per se is not a panacea for his problem. He may have a problem. He may have a guy who is not, a boy who is not well. And how does he help him? What is do we have data on our employees, on their health issues? Many of our companies do not have. Many big companies do not have. So, and this data again can be used by technologically, we can find a solution to them and provide that solution will be more meaningful than just again transactional issues like medical insurance, ESI, this, that. ESI has grown up, like ESI has improved a lot. If you look at it 10 years back or 15 years back, what it was and what it is today, it has improved a lot. So I would suggest that look at it differently. The points which has been given are good, but look at it differently.
So now we have a question. So it's from N3V72. what are your recommendations about how the companies should restart post-lockdown with so many restrictions?
The post lockdown means there will be lesser restrictions, first of all. But people, I have given in one of my WhatsApp things that people have to be careful how they have to, what are the again, entire process map has to be done. Which people required to be there in the office? How do they? What are the governing? There must be a protocol for each organization for taking the people in. That is number one. And how do we use them? Second one is that how do we operationalize them? What is their productivity? How they are operationalize them? So that ultimately the company has to run. The organization has to continue to grow. So or continue to sustain. Forget about growth, at least sustain. So need to be entire process mapping has to be done along with the executive management team to see, and there must be a protocol which has to be created for each organization to ensure that this is not relapsed again, because even if there is a relaxation, at least for another 2 months, there must be enough care has to be taken to ensure that we are taking this definitely at control.
So with that, we come to an end of today's session. Thank you so much for answering all the questions.
Thanks a lot to everybody. And I just wanted to share my last this one, which may be interesting to each one of you. What I want to, is it visible? Is it visible?
No, it isn't, sir. Not yet.
So just let me just share it. Is it shared, right?
Yes.
Is it visible now?
Yes,
yeah.
Sir, yes.
So what I want to use it is that let us build build a resilience by learning from nature and enabling technology. So my email ID is being given, p2b@soulsearchhr.com, and my email phone number is 778081633366. And this I think is available in the YouTube, so that when people go through it, they will be able to see this slide also. So people can connect to me, relate to me. All the very best. Thanks a lot for being with me and listening to my thoughts. And it's a pleasure to be among us, and very good well-wishers have joined, especially Srini has worked with me years back, and it is in a very senior position today. So all the people who have come on board, listening to my thoughts, and most important thing is that critically evaluate my thoughts and bring feedback. And even now or afterwards, it will be a great pleasure to learn from each one of you who are all veterans. Thanks a lot, Chandra and Prayana, for inviting me for this session, and hope to have such interesting sessions and learning. And it was a really enriching experience for me too. Thank you very much. Good day to everybody, and God bless and be safe. Thank you. Can I sign it off?
Yes, so you can sign it off.
Thank you.
Right. So with that, we come to an end to today's session. Now, you guys know it's time for feedback now. And oh God. So my thing, could you guys like wait a second for that?
I can have a cup of tea now, isn't it?
Sure, sir. Yeah, okay, so I seem to have a little bit of a technical glitch, but that's okay. You guys know next step is feedback. So you, in case you have any feedback about how we can make the next section, even better, please do leave it as a comment in our YouTube channel. And tomorrow's session is going to be our Pain Go Away. It's going to be taken by Dr. Priya Vadana. And that session is also going to be from 5 to 6 p.m. So I hope to see you guys all there. Thank you so much for watching.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. And good day. Yeah.
So thank you so much for watching. So do not forget to subscribe to us. Subscribe, share, and like. So stay home, stay safe, and see you guys tomorrow. And thank you so much for coming once again.